Verbally Effective, your double E, Ina Esco here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 145 of the Verbally Effective podcast. I have a beautiful young lady joining me today. We were both guests on our good friend Kevin Cerrito's trivia game, which was virtual. And I see her on TV all the time. I said, I got to get her on the Verbally Effective podcast. So me and Sanaa hooked it up. She is the morning meteorologist and time saver traffic reporter over there at Local 24 News, Good Day Memphis. She's also co-anchoring. She's been on American Idol, Miss Tennessee. She done did so much stuff. We're going to talk about it all today. Welcome, Chelsea Chandler. How are you, beautiful?
I'm doing good. I'm hiding in my car. I call it my rolling tenement because based off my job, I basically live in it. But as you can see, I'm like hiding in the woods right now.
I see. Look, you're giving me good scenery in the background. So it's all
So what I did is I drove around this entire parking lot. I'm at work to find what would be the best lighting.
That is
somebody
on
TV.
That is the best, Chelsea. And you know, like I said, we see you on the news all the time. You have a beautiful personality, Chelsea. You're gorgeous. You have a beautiful smile. And I said, I know there is so much behind that smile of Chelsea's. And then when you sent me your bio, I was like, whoa, baby. Like, she has really been through so many challenges and triumphs. So we're going to dig into a lot of that today on the Verbally Effective podcast. I'm so glad that you want to share. And this is your first pod as well. So thank you, Chelsea, for joining me.
No problem. I'm honored to be a part of it.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to get started. And the first question I ask all my guests, which part of Memphis are you from?
Well, technically, I was born and my first home was in Hickory Hill. So I like to tell people not to judge from the fact that I live in Germantown now.
Right.
And I spent most of my life in Germantown. I am definitely Memphis. That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So how was it?
But I grew up in Germantown. I mean,
you grew up in Germantown. How was it growing up in Germantown? And tell me about, the school you attended and what were you into at a very young age, Chelsea?
What was the last thing you said? It broke up what did I want to do at a young age? What was that?
I said, tell me about you growing up in Germantown, the school you attended, and some of the things that you were into as a young Chelsea.
All right. Well, growing up in Germantown was, great. We moved there specifically for school for me because I had actually, and I hate this is where things get weird because I don't want to sit and like brag about myself, but I had been tested. They took me to a psychologist. I have an IQ, like a Mensa level IQ. And so I ended up moving ahead in school. And so at the time, Dogwood Elementary was the best elementary school in the state. I'm sure it's still pretty good, but we moved specifically for that reason. And I stayed in the public school system up until high school. And the only reason I changed, I was going to go to Houston High School. The only reason I changed was because I auditioned, because I'm a singer, I always have been, and I auditioned, and I actually was told by the high school director that singing I needed to search for other hobbies because singing would not be it for me. And so I told my mom I didn't want to go to school there. And so I went to Briarcrest, and it was an experience. I'll just leave it at that.
That's where
to say the least,
from, though, right?
It is where I graduated from. I don't know that they acknowledged that I graduated from there, but I did.
Right. Were you in the choir there?
I was, yeah, of course. But I will say, so I have learned now that as I've become an adult, and this isn't exclusive to Germantown, just in general, I'm learning much more how much of a bubble I grew up in.
Right.
Education wise, the censorship that is a part of education, especially in a private Christian school. So, I'm thankful for a lot of the life experience I have. Otherwise I would be just completely naive and oblivious to the real world. But Things I was into were none of the traditional things. I started out dancing and skating, and I actually was a junior Olympic figure skater.
What?
And I was on the Memphis speed team for speed skate. Girl, I lived at Easton Skating Rink.
Did
That was
you?
where I was. Yes, I
Yes.
told you. I told you I was Memphis. I lived in Hickory Hill. All right.
We've all been
So,
to East End. I love it. I love it. I wish I could go right now, but I'm scared of COVID. But wow, so
well,
Junior Olympics. Girl, you was
yeah.
good. You was good.
Yeah, I mean, I was young, but I have the whole I had the whole, get up. I don't know where it is now, but my, little leotard with the rings. I was very young though. You have to keep in mind, but I qualified and I skated to Beauty and the Beast, the actual song Beauty and the Beast. That was my song. But if you think about it, so I also was on the Memphis speed team. I'll get to that in a second. But you have to visualize what those skating rinks look like. And if you think about it, it have like, sorry, I talk with my hands for a living,
It's
so I'm going to
okay.
talk with my
It's
hands
okay.
constantly. But they have like those figure eights that are painted. If you really think or Google it, and a lot of the practice that I did learning first was there on those. So like when the skating rink was closed, I was with my coach and stuff, and we would learn patterns and things like that that way. And then I was on the Memphis speed team, which was for racing, and I was too fast. I'm short, don't get me wrong, but I could skate, I could get down low. And I mean, I had my pink Bridell leather custom quads with my wicked eyed skates, and
Okay.
my inlines were for racing. My quads were for jam skating. But my inlines had my cherry bomb wheels. I thought I was just it,
Yes.
but
Look, I want to see one of those
I,
pictures.
so
Ah.
I'm sure I can find it. But I used to race up against, I couldn't, I mean, I would always beat my age. So I would always race up in age, and I would always ask if I could compete against the boys, and they let me, thinking like wouldn't win, but I would. The problem was I could go fast, but I couldn't stop. I didn't want to, because like when people like do that skirt kind of thing, you mess
Yeah.
up your wheels.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to do that. But if you remember the back wall, it's covered in carpet. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would just make that fine. Once I cross the finish line, I just make that lap. And my nickname for our team, I was always called Wall Crasher, because I had to brace myself. And that's just how I stopped.
Right. I could imagine you just going bap on
That's
that
how I had
carpet
to
wall.
stop. I just had
Yes.
to brace myself. So Wall
Look,
Crasher, that was my nickname.
I've done it quite a few times, but not on your level, Chelsea. Not on your level.
But
So
I'll tell you, one of the best memories though was my mother. I mean, I've had some of the most supportive parents ever, and I can remember exactly where my mom was. Not like she could, tell me, what to do, but I just, yay, Chelsea, like, cheer me on the whole time. So
yes.
it was always nice to have that support my
Wow.
whole life, and on all the crazy things I've done. But it started off with that, and horses. I showed horses. I traveled around the country. My parents, that's how my parents met, was showing horses. My mom's a world champion. My dad is a judge for 30 something years. He's a world champion. And then I ended up doing the same. I
Wow.
showed
That is
Western pleasure for years. That's what I did every weekend. But
good.
eventually you have to start picking and choosing. And so I ended up giving up skating, giving up dancing, because I was showing horses. And then I sang. And that was a passion that, like, I always sang. My mom said when I was a baby, I would just mimic instrument noises in my seat, but it wasn't until I was 11 that I started taking actual lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kind of went from there. And then I got to a point where I had to give up horses.
Oh, wow.
I was the High Point winner for Tennessee for several years. So I represented at the world's largest quarter horse show. And, I have some great memories from that. But again, all over the place,
All
experiences, a
over the
lot of,
place, but a lot of
a,
good places.
yeah, but I will say, like, a lot of things that like normal people did, I did. Like the first time I went to a lake, I was in college, which
Okay.
for down here is kind of weird. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I got to do some really different and unique things. So
Very, very
I'm
touched.
great at parties, because I can talk about anything,
I
from the
believe.
weather. I literally covered sports. I literally can talk about everything.
Wow. Okay, so you said you had to make a decision, and I heard you sing on Kevin's trivia game. And I said, dang, she got a voice on her. Like, I'm talking about you can sing for real. Like, is that like your ultimate passion or no?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I've always, when people ask, like, tell me about yourself, like one of the first things, now it's a little different, but I've always self-identified as a singer. And I think that's also why I was very confused. Like when I ended up going to college, I didn't know what I was doing, because in my mind I was going to be a singer, and that's why I have so many, so many different degrees. But singing and performing in general, I just loved it, and I really truly love competing.
Mhm.
I'm an incredibly competitive person, and a lot of that has to do with the way I was raised. I mean,
Yeah.
my parents pushed me, and it wasn't like, well, if you don't win, we don't love you kind of
Right.
thing. But it was um like, for instance, when I was turning 16, like, if you have A's, then you get an A car. If you got B's, you get a B car. You know what I mean? And
Oh,
I will
wow.
say though, my dad did notoriously tell me that second place was the first loser, and that stuck with me for a while. But I mean, I loved competing. I won so much money competing. In Vegas alone, I won $50,000 singing. So that was cool.
Oh, wow. How
But
old were you
yeah,
and what kind of contest was that in Vegas? And how old were you when you participated in this Vegas Big Money 50K?
I think I was like 19, and it actually worked out because I needed a new car, and I was able to come home and pay cash. And they looked at me like, "What?" And I
Mm.
paid cash for basically a brand new. It was a Honda Civic. So that was pretty cool. That was nice.
Wow.
But I don't even remember what it was called. I don't think it's even a thing anymore. But I anything like some of the coolest things, I'll say, every year I competed. I mostly was a country singer, country blues, rocky kind of singer, but really mostly country. Um, One of my favorite things to do though was to take songs that everybody knows, but then to like kind of put my own spin on it. And
Yeah.
so some of the coolest things I did, Dolly Parton has a contest. She used to, in Sevierville. And so I won, but you have to, people don't realize that she has such a large music catalog,
Yes, she
and
does.
you had to sing a song that she wrote, but you couldn't use I Will Always Love You, because everyone always sing that.
Hmm.
Um, so I tried to choose something obscure, and I chose the Bargain Store. It's actually, you can actually find it on YouTube. But anyway, I ended up winning. But the cool thing was, yeah, I got $500. The cool thing was though, I got a signed guitar from her.
Mm.
I got to perform at their big festival, and I love like bluegrass music and all that. So
Yes.
it was really cool. And I mean, it's raining, and you can hear the thunder in the background, and people are just sitting,
Wow.
like, still sitting there listening to me sing, and that was so cool. But every summer, I lived to go to Loretta Lynn, of all people.
Oh, I love
Um,
Loretta Lynn.
well, I went to her competition, and I'm the only person who ever won the whole thing. So you have to win you'd be in the top five for your first round, then you all go to the finals. And I'm the only person to win as both an adult and a youth. But
Mm.
what I'll tell you, what the coolest thing about it was, is if you win, you get to open up for her. And it wasn't so much to open up for her, because I've opened up for like Keith Urban, a bunch of different
Mm.
people, and that's been cool. But what was really cool about her is that they don't have to sit and talk to you. You know what I mean? Like, you are essentially, it could be nobody to them. You know what I mean? But Loretta literally was like, bring her in here. I want to talk to her. And
Mm.
I came into her Pepto-Bismol pink um, dressing room that literally probably has been the same since 1974 on her ranch. And she sat and literally just wanted to talk to me, and just like, just talk to me, tell me about your passage. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And that was kind of a lesson for me. What I always wanted to be
Mhm.
is to make sure that I was always open like that. If anyone ever, like pre-COVID, anytime anybody ever came up to me, I gave them a big hug. I have people
Wow.
kiss me on the cheek, and sometimes that's weird, but like, I don't care. It's harmless
Mhm.
99% of the time. But I'll sit and talk to anybody. If they take the time to watch, or to come up and talk to me, because for some
Mhm.
people that may have taken some courage. I'm appreciative of that, and I
Yeah.
think that may be a lesson that I took from from her.
Yeah. Did she give you any good advice, Loretta Lynn?
I don't even remember.
You don't remember, but you remember being with her. Can you play the guitar, Chelsea?
So in my life, I have played at some point. I've played piano, guitar, violin, and my grandfather taught me to play harmonica. But in the end, I ultimately chose soft fingers and long fingernails over over instruments.
Wow.
I don't have long nails. I call my little boy hands right now because thanks to COVID, I haven't had my nails done since March.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay, Chelsea, we're going to back up a bit. Now, I
okay.
know you went to Penn State to study meteorology, and I heard you say you studied a few more things. Why did you choose meteorology, and what else did you study at Penn State?
I did not choose meteorology. Actually, meteorology chose me. So I started at CBU here in Memphis.
Okay.
And in my mind, I was going to law school just because everyone always told me that I was stubborn and I could argue with the rock. And I was like, you're right. And I'll still win. So I was going to go to law school. I have a passion. I love history. So I was a history major. I'm one of only two music um, people with the music to ever graduate with degrees from CBU because they canceled the program after.
Wow.
But that's also how I paid for school. So I had a full ride to school. And this is a fun fact. Part of it I had was a sports scholarship, but I was not athletic. I had an athletic scholarship thanks to my momager who got an athletic scholarship for me to sing the national anthem
Well, how does that
at
work? An athletic
sporting event.
scholarship? Oh, for really, she worked that out.
Like it came out of their budget. Girl, yes, she
She
did.
worked that out. Okay.
She's Chris Jenner 2.0, but not quite. So all right, so I went there, and after a year of history, I was like, this ain't it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not enjoying this. And then I went through, I was like, well, what do I want to do? My mom was like, I don't know. Do you want to be a pharmacist? And I'm like, well, I'll try it out. Went there for a week of classes, and I was like, hate it. The guy I was dating at the time was like, what about a teacher? And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll try it. Couldn't even take the cellophane off my books. I was like, nope, that's not going to work. And
Mm.
so I ended up choosing psychology, but because CBU actually, their psychology is a Bachelor of Arts, unlike science, Bachelor of Science, like at a lot of schools. I was able to, all of my undergraduate, basically all ran together for music and history. So I was able to study all three. I just took, sorry, my
That's
my
okay.
phone may have went black for a second. I was able to, do that all at the same time. And also, I just never took a break. Like I was, I think, allowed to take 21 credits every semester. I never took summer off. I always took classes so that I could graduate with those degrees. Now, in meteorology, um, okay, so I have to back up because I was Miss Tennessee. And because I was Miss Tennessee, Andrew Douglas, who's a dear friend of mine, we used to chat because I worked at Lifetime Fitness. And he was like, hey, would you ever be interested in doing traffic? And I was like, yeah,
Mm.
okay, why not? I know the city like the inside, backside of my hand. So I went, and this doesn't really happen in TV. Normally, it's a much longer process. But I went in, and their consultant was in town, and I essentially was hired on the spot, which again doesn't happen. Did that for a little while. Had an accident. Ended up in sports radio, was covering the Grizzlies, ended up getting a job offer from the Phoenix Suns, and then turned that down because ABC here in Memphis undercut them. And literally, I mean, when I say undercut them, like car was packed, and I sent the GM a message, and I said, my car is packed and I am gone at 2:30 tomorrow if you don't have a better offer.
Mm.
And they literally told me to go. And I laid on my bedroom floor wailing, crying because I
Oh,
really didn't want to leave. I wanted to be in Memphis. And I swear, like 10, 11 o'clock, I got a phone call. Hey, if you're still interested, we'd like to talk to you tomorrow morning. And they offered me a job where I started doing traffic. I covered the Grizzlies, a little bit of everything. I did commercials. I did eventually a home restoration which is the funniest of all things. But what happened was nobody wanted to work on our weather team. Nobody wanted to work Memorial Day. They're kind of all bickering about it, and they needed a fourth person. And so everyone looked at me, and my boss was like, would you be interested in going to school for meteorology? And I was like, yeah, okay, why not? Well, the thing was, I started doing it. I filled in, and I'd already been studying. So I started out, and it was just local storm teams, Chelsea Chandler. And then very quietly, we made the switch once I finished to meteorologist. We didn't make a big to do about it because I hadn't finished school when I first was doing weather. So the rule was, as long as there wasn't severe weather, at least at that point, I was good to go. And it was all fine. But that weekend, man, I lost my grandmother on Thursday, went to work on Friday. Saturday morning, had to cover the river run downtown because it was 901 Fest weekend for Memphis in May. Day turn a package, then go live host in the field, a telecast, then do my weather debut the next night, do a turnaround, do weather Monday morning and Monday night, and then back Tuesday to do traffic. I was awarded Employee of the Month that month for obvious reasons, but that was Memorial Day weekend, and then our morning meteorologist, she quit June 25th, and so I started doing weather and traffic every day. And I one of the few times I can say I've never prayed harder in my life. I'm like, please, Lord, please let it be 75 and sunny every day. And it's the middle of the summer, and that doesn't happen. And I swear to you, at least my first week, it was like perfect. So my stress level was a little bit further down.
You had it good that first week. Wow. Let me ask you.
But I didn't get it handed to me. They actually brought people in, and I still got the job. Like they still chose me over the other people. So
right. And you completed everything at Penn State. So it seems meteorology was so different from everything that you were involved in. So how did you like it? Was that experience a breath of fresh air? Did you like it or no?
No. I've always told people growing up, I hated math and science, and I avoided it like the plague. And now, ironically, I'm a scientist. And I'm actually back in school at Mississippi State online, taking some advanced courses for meteorology and geology in order to get my seals and some advanced weather seals. More so just because I want to have, every day, like I enjoy being a part of everyone's everyday life. But more importantly, I feel confident in my ability to track severe weather, but I just want to be the best that I can be when potentially people's lives are on the line, and so that's just something I'm investing in myself and in our team. So
that's good. And like when that severe weather happens, it's like go time for you meteorologists. Like we are zoomed into what you say, because it's just cutting up outside and we need to know what's going on. Is that like hectic for you all when it's like crunch time with I'm talking about damn near tornadic activity, y'all up in the studio, like you may be like, bracing for your life too. Like how is the pressure of those periods on the news for meteorology?
It's draining, I will say, when you get breakouts, when you're on hours at a time, but that's why we have team coverage. But even then, it's all about communication, and we work really well with that. But it is stressful, and sometimes you're in the adrenaline of it, and it's really, you feel it at the end that it's like the oof. Or I can say, too, when looking at the radar and looking at the different tools we have, I mean, some people won't do this. Some people will only wait until it's 100% been confirmed by either someone seeing it or the National Weather Service. But I mean, we, for the most part, can look at that radar and we're like, oh no, that's definitely a tornado on the ground. And I've had only one time while I was on air, I had to mute my mic and call my parents to make sure that they got in the closet. Because you got to keep in mind, like I'm thinking about family and friends, but also the general public too. We've never had any incident, at least when I was there, that I was concerned. We've lost power a couple times, but I mean, you keep going. And especially, probably the worst is during hurricanes, which sounds crazy because you get spin up tornadoes and they can last for 4 minutes. And you can have, one year we had like 37 of them. And that was taxing. It's also hard to, both in traffic and weather, because you're potentially also reporting about death and loss of everything. And we've seen that. Probably my first real taste of that was Christmas of, I believe it was 2014 in Mississippi, Holly Springs. There was a child. It was literally right before Christmas. It was like December 22nd. Because this is technically secondary severe weather season. We consider the main severe weather season when the transition from winter to spring. But honestly, living in the South, it's always severe weather season because
right.
we have enough heat and humidity. But that was, I mean, seeing it firsthand. Same with traffic. You know, I would report about pedestrian accidents all the time, and then I actually watched someone be hit and killed on the interstate.
No.
And that was very hard, but it also made it very real, and I think changed me in the way that I present things like that. Because before it was, here's your traffic update, you know, there's a pedestrian that's been struck, almost losing the human side of the fact that there's a person that's literally just been hit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then seeing it live and in person, I mean, I lost it. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, Chelsea, I want to talk to you about some of the pressures of being in the media, because, you know, I'm going to say this. I don't see a lot of women meteorologists in Memphis. I see a couple, I mean, but I see more men, I think, across all of the major networks here. And you do an absolutely wonderful job. But I do know that you have a personal life as well. And you all have to present, you know, you have to do your job. So how do you handle, you know, pressures, I guess on a personal level, and have to put your face on for, you know, all of us to see you doing your job? Tell me about that.
Well, there's no such thing as an off day. You're not allowed, I mean, they don't exist. We're not really allowed to have those. I think people can tell when you're sick. I mean, and you're pulling through, but for the most part, I see nationally a lot of people talk about how some of their viewers just send the most hateful things. I've actually been really fortunate. Most viewers here in Memphis have been incredibly kind and supportive. And, you know, most comments I get are like, where do you get your dresses and things like that, you know? But you do have to pick and choose, because you do give up a certain level of privacy, because part of being a personality is letting people in and letting people know who you are. Because the main thing I've always said is I'm going to be me on air. And I'm very fortunate that I have bosses that let me be 100% me on air. You know, a lot of places wouldn't let that happen. They're a little more guarded. And I mean, if you just look at my Twitter feed, some of the, I mean, I present
we see
the
your
weather,
personality. Yes.
but I present it the way I would talk to my friends or anybody. Because I think the biggest compliment I ever got, it wasn't even to me, it was to my friend by my boss, my former boss, actually. And he said that I talk to people, not at people. And, you know, that's really important to me. But I mean, you're always going to have people that say hateful things, but it's the way that you respond it. Some people choose to just ignore it completely. I function under the hurt people kind of thing. Yeah. And so I always respond, you know, like, I'm sorry that, you know, whatever it is, you know, but I hope I hope you have a better day tomorrow, you know. Or if someone just says something absolutely egregious, I have absolutely no problem dragging them all online.
Yes,
when necessary.
Yes, you do. I've seen it happen.
Starting first and foremost, you know what, I may even get in trouble for saying this, but I don't care. First and foremost with MLGW, when they love to put out, they used to, I think they've learned their lesson at this point, but they used to love to put out press releases about how these storms that they did not know, you know, were coming, and we're like, oh, we've only talked about it for a week, but, you know, blame us. And so I used to, drag them every chance I got, and they
drag them, girl, because
they
are a ridiculous monopoly here.
They came to, I was out of town, but they came to my station and requested that I back up.
No, no. Oh, they
I
singled you
didn't.
out. No,
I
don't.
didn't. Mm-mm.
No.
Girl,
Well,
no. If you're still gonna listen, if I'm gonna do my job, do your job, and quit point, just own it. When I
yeah,
make a mistake, that's the one thing too. When I first started, I was really hard on myself as far as like if I made an error, like I wanted to be perfect, and I took it really hard if like the smallest thing in my forecast wasn't 100% accurate. And I have to remind myself, like, you're literally predicting the future. Like
right.
you're doing the best you can. You know what I
You
mean?
are. And
And
weather
I
can
think
change.
people, yeah, Mother Nature gonna do what she wanna do. And I think people realize that for the most part. But I don't know where I was going with that. I was just saying that I was hard on myself. Oh, now I'm very self-deprecating.
Okay.
Like I'll make an error. Like yesterday, I had a spelling error. I spelled danger without an N. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna fix that. It's like I own
Yes.
it. I don't try to cover it up. I'm like, y'all, it's early.
Yeah.
Like I just am. I try to keep it. I don't. That sounds corny to say keep it real, but I mean, again, I just
You
tell
do.
you the weather just
You
like I'm
do.
talking to you right now.
We love you on TV. We love you on social media. Yeah, I follow you on Twitter. I'm always commenting on your posts. But I know a lot of people may not know about some of the personal things that have been going on in your life. And you mentioned to me that you were 50 pounds heavier. What, just how long ago?
December.
December.
So about a year. I mean, now it's been about a year. Yeah.
So you've lost this weight, honey, and you are glowing. And I was just reading over your bio again, and you've had quite a few tragedies in your life. I saw that you've lost your brother 10 years ago. Could you talk to us about that? Are you
Yeah.
open to talking about that?
I have no problem talking about it. Actually, I have done a lot of work. So, okay, so January 1st, 2011, my brother committed suicide. And I think at first it was more, I mean, you go through the stages of grief, and the first is, disbelief almost. But I very quickly turned that into a platform because I realized that mental health was something that was in dire need of breaking that barrier of talking about it. So when I went through the process of Miss Tennessee, actually that was my platform. It was um, suicide. Sorry, I went black for a second there. Suicide awareness, voices of education. That was what I wanted to do, was talk, and so I am open to talking about it. But I mean, that's hard. Yeah, it is. The 10-year anniversary will be January 1st, and there's some really messed up things associated with that. He wanted us to remember it, so it was 1111. So we'll
Oh,
never forget it. My brother, he did leave two beautiful daughters behind, and the circumstances behind it were very. I can get I don't get angry a lot, but um, how do I say this? Having someone say that tell my brother that the world would be better off without him, and that he wasn't man enough to pull the trigger, and knowing that, that's enough to make you pretty angry. But since then, I've tried to be very open about my own mental health struggles. I had an accident that almost killed me. I almost had my arm amputated. My own dog attacked me.
how did that
And
happen,
we can,
Chelsea? What happened with your
um,
dog? How long did you have the dog? He just flipped one day?
I had him for 4 years, and yeah, it just happened. And he bit the back of my leg. So I actually don't have feeling in the back of my right thigh. I've got dog bite marks all over my body. And actually, that anniversary, this is a hard time of year for me, comes up in December. And I still get pains in my arm. I had some issues with some edema this past year. And I mean, it's been a while. I got a plate and 6 screws in my arm, but they almost had to amputate because the tooth penetrated the bone. But I was actually diagnosed with PTSD at the time, which most people only associate with veterans. But uh, it can happen to anybody who experienced some sort of traumatic event. I was
Yeah.
waking up in the middle of the night screaming.
Mm.
But the reason I say that is because I now I don't have those types of symptoms now, but I am more prone to depression and anxiety. And that is something that I've struggled with, especially the last several years of my life. And I finally, you mentioned like, the glow or whatever. It's because I finally have found that balance. I finally took control, finding therapy, getting medications in check, and being open about it, talking about it. I talk about it on air all the time. And it all starts because I feel like, had I known more then, maybe I would have, it's always the what ifs, like what if I had known, would I have been able to change it? Like he was apparently becoming very withdrawn. That side of my family my dad's side of the family is from Atlanta. So they were down there, and apparently it had just been at Thanksgiving, and he had been very withdrawn. And so I invited him because it was my second year as a Hollywood finalist on American Idol, and you can have one guest. And I was like, hey, let's get you out. Let's get you do something cool. And he wouldn't go. And then I got back, and I was actually sitting at a yogurt shop, and I got a phone call from my mom. And my mom is my mom is the sweetest soul you'll ever meet. And you could tell it was something bad, and she would not tell me on the phone. She's like, you need to get home. You need to get home now. And I remember they were standing in the driveway waiting for me. And when they told me, I just screamed, and I just was down on the ground. And
Oh my.
seeing him, I mean, it was still an open casket. It was he put a lot of thought into it, I'll tell you that. But what I will say is that this is actually something I learned from Ginger Z, who is the chief meteorologist for ABC, who I've become actually friends with. I interviewed her this summer because she told me about how she tried to commit suicide twice right before she checked herself into a mental facility, right as she got her dream job at ABC, and she made a point, and so I want to give her credit to it. When you're sick, you go to the doctor, and mental illness is the same thing. When you're sick, you need to get help, and you shouldn't be afraid to do that. And it's kind of like alcoholism and drug use. When we used to view people who sought help with going to rehab, it was always like, oh, it's a scandal. But now we're like, good for you for, taking, charge of your life, things like that. So that would be how we would like to see things progress with mental health. It's just unfortunately we're not there yet. I like to break that stigma, and that's really what a goal is for me moving forward. Unfortunately, I think we may have to pick this up in a minute because I just got a message from my boss. I think, what time is it?
Okay, verbally effective audience. We had to take a brief pause, but we're back, and I'm sure you've heard Chelsea talking about, her brother committing suicide and how she dealt with that, and is an advocate for mental health and dealing with her own struggles. And, Chelsea, that leads me to this question. Being a local celebrity here in Memphis, right? How do you handle dating and relationships? Is that a struggle or is it easy?
Okay. So, well, I mean, I was in a very public relationship for a long time. And so, again, like I mentioned earlier, when you do choose to work in an industry where you do give up a certain level of privacy. But that's because for me, some people, give up more than others. And I want people to be a part of my life and feel like they know me. Because again, like I've said, like what you see is what you get. Like this is who I am, and I think I learned some lessons because, they always say like the people who post pictures and are constantly trying to convince people, look how happy I am,
Right.
I think that's what I became. I was trying to convince myself that things were okay, and they weren't. And, I'm dating someone who is amazing. But I've chosen to keep that part of my life private, just because I want to have something of my own. I'm a complete open book. Everyone knows all about my dogs, my parents, my family, but at least for right now, I'd like to just protect it, because I will say that, again, in the past, there were, people would make some comments, not necessarily towards me, but just, unsolicited comments about my relationship
Yeah.
and things like that. And I don't know, right now I'm hyper vigilant about just protecting that and him, more so
Yeah, well,
than
that's a
anything.
good thing, Chelsea, because with being a local celebrity, or I wouldn't even just say local for in your case, but I think that there should be some mystery to some of the personalities. It's good to share and it's good to relate to people, but a little mystery isn't bad. So in that love life department, you might want to stick to your guns on that one, because you said everything going good. And am I hearing wedding bells on? Am I hearing them? I'm moving too
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, just for everyone always gets confused because the image is reversed. This is my grandmother's ring.
fast. Okay.
Everyone is like, oh, what about that ring? Nope, wrong
Grandmother's
hand,
ring.
wrong hand.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay. Well, the holidays are around the corner, so we shall see in that love life department. Hopefully, at least if you get engaged, let us know about it, Chelsea. But
Well, yeah, no, that I mean, honestly, and even again, referencing the past, I waited a full year before I even posted about that relationship, and everyone knew, it was very public.
yeah.
But I waited a whole year before I put that out there. And again, it's just also because I don't ever want to be one of those girls that's like, this is the guy I'm dating now, and this is the guy I'm dating now. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like,
Got you.
uh,
Gotcha.
you know,
Yeah. I feel you, Chelsea. Wow. Now, I know you use your social media platforms, very well. How has social media impacted your life, would you say?
a lot, in good ways and bad ways. When I was in a more self-conscious, I told you, like, this whole process, of, finding myself, getting myself healthy. I think maybe even for the first time in my life, I can honestly say, like, I love myself.
Good.
And, they say don't read the comments for a reason, but, like, I'm going to read the comment. Everyone reads comments.
They
But
read
like
the
you,
comments, girl.
everybody reads the comments. Everyone does. It's just up to you how you respond to them and handle them. But again, I have been fortunate about people being nice, but um, I think that some things, especially if I'm maybe having like a down day or a down week, like something that normally wouldn't bother me may hurt a little bit more. Like, y'all, I mean, we don't have people to do our hair and makeup and all this kind of stuff.
I
And
heard.
I was at home and, somebody made some comment about how I look like a man in makeup. And I was like, wait,
No.
what?
Me?
I was like, that's a first for me, but it was bad lighting. I mean, I'm from home, whatever, but like that kind of, that got me. But for the most part, honestly, I think social media is a amazing thing in the sense that I love that I can connect instantaneously to the people that are viewers or followers. I love, whereas some people like don't want to deal with that at all. Like, I love it. I'm like, message me. You can, do all this stuff. Like, I want to talk to you. If you ever go look at my posts, very rarely do I just not respond to somebody.
Right.
Like,
For sure.
I want to talk to people. Because again, I want to get to know them, because that's the whole point of my job from my perspective is, or not just mine, our whole job,
Mhm.
is serving y'all, in whatever aspect that is.
Yeah.
And so I think social media is great because I've met a lot of people, both locally. I've connected with people that I may never have, before.
Mhm.
Um, it's a great way to, again, promote yourself, market yourself. But I would say, just like I had mentioned earlier, all that glitters isn't gold. You know, you can't believe everything you see on social media because, you know, people, it's a highlight reel. And I think that that is what people need to realize. So I try, when I am down or going through something, I try to post honestly about that,
Yeah.
and show that vulnerability in hopes that maybe somebody else will see that. And anytime I have posted about it, I have gotten a lot of, you know, comments, like personal, like messages and things like that, about people being like, you know, sometimes it's encouraging, but also it's crazy to hear you say that, you know, because it seems like you have everything. But it also is very empowering because I'm going through X, Y, or Z, you know. But again, like I said, all that glitters is gold. People may think that you have the world in your hands, but sometimes the world gets pretty heavy. And, you know, again, like I said, there's no such thing as an off day.
Yeah.
And days that are off days that I have to, that would honestly are really not, very few and far between. This is back when I was going through some things. The days when I had to dig deep to find it were exhausting because it took 2 to 3 times the effort to smile. And honestly, if you just want to go through and scroll through my social media, look the difference in the way I smile. You can tell when I'm smiling and when I'm smiling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm truly happy, and I can't tell you the last time I've been able to say that. And yeah, I have been through a lot, but everything that I've been through has shaped me in one way or another. And I mean, of course I want my brother back. I'd love, you know, and my family unit to be together.
Yeah.
But since that isn't realistic, you know, people always say, well, I wouldn't change anything. You know, that's a broad statement. I do believe I'm where I'm meant to be, that God has had a plan for me because I very much have fallen up, a lot, you know.
Mhm.
um,
Yes.
I've been fortunate, but yeah, you know, it's just,
Yeah.
I
I
don't know that
see.
I change things.
Now, are you and your nieces very close?
So no, I would say that we were a lot closer. But honestly, the death of my brother, that actually, when I started doing more advocating for it, my family didn't 100% back it.
Okay.
And because I mean, it was associated at first to Miss Tennessee, and I could 100% see their side where they think that it's done from this is done for a selfish intent, you know what I mean, for a personal gain of some kind. But no, that wasn't the case. But you know, when people make up their mind, perception is reality. And I mean, 10 years later, here we are. And I'm actually, and I'll just tell you, one of the reasons we had to pause was because I was talking to my boss, because actually, you know, my therapist, when we were talking, was like, you have the platform, it's your passion, why aren't you doing more? And I was like, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And we've been meeting about this for months. And my original plan was to start some things with mental health in September for Suicide Awareness Month. And then with COVID and everything going on in the world, you know, things just didn't work out. And at first, I was pretty butthurt about it, because I was like, the whole point was to start, you know. But then it was like, again, it was divine intervention. It was, you know, now it's going to be something more in his memory, that I can start this and hopefully help some people in our community. And it's not going to be, you'll hear from me, but it won't be just me. It's going to be, I can't tell you a lot about it, but
Okay. It's an
I'm
exclusive.
about to, well, I'm not going to tease, mainly because it isn't all put together.
Got
But